It's okay, it'll work. It's easier than what some of this is. Demolition. How's it going down there, Luke?
No, okay, I think.
So we're supposed to live stream our meetings now. Luke's getting us out, so. Should I hire him?
I'm sorry, I'm late. Joe just said I'm leaving goodbye. We're doing it.
Oh my God, yeah.
So,
That was a lot better than So we're on? Okay.
you're a student?
If you speak clearly.
It's a kind of a test, so yeah, try to speak clearly and we'll see how it goes. For future adjustments.
That's how they contract it, so.
Please.
Yeah, that's good. I'm just trying to figure out what this is about. Contract with.
Okay, folks, I'd like to call this meeting to order, Tuesday, July 16th. For your Syracuse Property Development Corporation, we've got a call to order and we're making one of our folks. The roll call, the notice has been posted. Minutes, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second, Nancy, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any opposed? Okay, executive summary.
Our financial statements through the end of June are attached here. If anybody has any questions? I know you were curious about the lawn mowing, cost being higher. He did a little bit of research into that, and it's mostly tree removal. So for all the demolitions that we've done this year, the lawn mowing expense.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
Do you want me to talk about it, or do you want to talk about it?
I can go ahead. Yeah, I mean, basically, we had a lot of expenses for tree removal, about $20-something thousand for this year that we didn't have last year. We're actually down a little bit for lawn mowing costs, which makes sense because if your properties, like we got good prices this year. So really, it's a tree removal that kind of falls kind of sporadically whenever they request the work, whenever they get that done.
And that's separate from that contract that we have that we were also talking about our limit paper, there was specifically a targeted effort to clean up lots. So
Yes, that's separate.
that's why it would show up later.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, where is the vacant lot work on Chester showing up in our chart of accounts? Do you know? That's,
That, I'm reporting a stabilization.
okay. It's kind of a weird gray area.
Yeah, it's even lawn removals, it includes like overgrowth removal that we use for Mitchell's, and then also tree removal, so it can get a little, so yeah, that I think I just need stabilization.
Okay. So that expense is getting reimbursed through the city contract with ARPA, and most of these tree removals, I think, are related to the demolitions that we're doing. And so that's getting reimbursed from whatever funding source is funding that demo. Although a good number of them are just storm related or neighbor complaints. What would you say, maybe 50/50? Okay. Any other questions on those financial statements?
Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the financial statements.
So
Nancy, second. Second, Jennifer, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? New business authorized sale.
starting on page 22 in your packet, we had one offer on 730 in the morning. This young woman is planning to renovate and then resell it to her husband will occupy.
Can I ask a question about this one? Is there parking behind that? That looks like from the line that you're on.
Yes, there's an actual garage, and there's a small road, I don't know if the city takes care of it, or the people that own those houses, it goes down about 4 or 5 houses.
Thank
Next up, 2027 Midland Ave is a two-family home. We put a lot of stabilization funding into, and it is in a homeownership choice program. All three of these buyers have purchased from us before. They've all done good work. They all plan to flip to an owner occupant, and so all else being equal, we're recommending sale to the highest bidder. 220 Grace is a buildable vacant lot, but both neighbors are very interested in taking title and fencing in that space because there's been a lot of pedestrian cut through. The street behind them is Sabine, is that
Yes.
right? And there's just been an awful lot of criminal activity and people running through those blocks to get away from the police. So they're wanting to put up a fence to cut down on that.
A lot of illegal dumping, I'd say, too.
Yes.
From a particular. Everything. Such.
Well, Romaine, did catch somebody that was dumping on Grace in Delaware there. We're supposed to clean back all the time.
So this won't negatively impact our plan, or anything.
No, we have an awful lot of other buildable lots over there, and we are trying to hang on to as many as we can to build new homes, but they're very interested in acquiring this
We
sidewalk.
don't know the progress. How's their progress? So they're all lined up for.
So the Loliga sites are all on Delaware Street, and there's an open application round right now for 9% tax credits, and they will be putting in their second application. It often takes multiple rounds. So we're optimistic that they'll get funded at this time. We should know by the end of the calendar year. Fingers crossed.
Well, there's a bunch of developers that are lined up.
It's all, yeah, it's highly dependent. 348 Craig is a non-buildable lot, and the landlord next door wants to purchase that to expand the yard. 364 Seymour Street is non-buildable. We just took down a house there, and the woman next door wants to expand her yard. Just not relevant at all, but she just celebrated her 100th birthday, and she's lived in this house since the late 80s. So she's looking for a little bit of dispensable space. SHA properties are on the other side of this lot.
We donate it to her. Happy birthday, give her 51 bucks.
We're gonna help her out with the expensive survey and yeah, when our buyers can't afford a survey, we do help with our in that situation. Great. And lastly, we have these 3 vacant lots on East Genesee Street, which we talked about a couple months ago, I think. This buyer has significantly improved his architectural plans. What he came to us with before was basically a pole barn. He's had numerous conversations with the zoning office and has amended these plans to comply with the zoning regs. So the siding now would be some brick and some wood siding, no more corrugated aluminum. So this would be another situation where the actual closing is contingent upon getting these permits and financing in place.
It's an interesting project.
Yeah.
Any questions? So multiple properties are in motion.
Second.
Nancy, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So 600 Park Street, we're saying.
This is summarized on page 33 of your packet. The Northside Learning Center, operates what used to be a Catholic school up there on Clark Street. Yes, thank you. I don't remember that.
I went to a mall. No.
You can pass it around.
I did trail.
So they have not been in the business of operating rental properties before, but a lot of their clients are having a hard time finding good quality rentals that are affordable. They want to get into this. They have some philanthropic investors that are interested in helping them do so. And they have received a funding from the city to help subsidize this project as well. They have a good, reputable GC that I think can handle the project. Hopefully keep it within budget. This house is in pretty rough shape. It's currently configured as 4 units, and they would be converting it to 2. And then there's a walkout basement on the Park Street side. They wanted to put an office in, and this conversation with them has been going on for so long. I think when we first started talking about it, it was zoned local business class A, and that would have been allowed. But now it's R4, and I'm not sure that an office is permitted anymore. But either way, that's going to be there to figure out. They do have an architect they're using, Craig Colinas, that's done a lot of work for Attorney Goods, and we'll help them to navigate that. The rental side that's generating income would be taxable. If they were to put an office in the basement, that would probably be tax exempt, as far as property taxes go.
They obviously would be the center. Right. And he's only,
Yes,
the deal with Mark.
yes.
It's been a dream of theirs for quite some time. It's for a while.
And this is right across the street from their facility there, so it's,
We have a lot of relationships with other people.
So 600 Park Street, Northside Living Center, I'll ask for a motion to approve that.
So,
Second, Nancy, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Contract for stabilization to 10 South State Street.
this one, is a little odd, you know, we're scrambling, we've gotta get, all of our stabilizations done under our current contract by December 1st. This is an owner occupant buyer, you voted to sell him this house, I wanna say back in May, maybe June. He's been working with various contractors to get quotes on the rehab, and the quotes coming in higher than he expected. His renovation financing is going through home headquarters. His most recent quote came in around $220,000 for the entire project. So home headquarters is a little concerned about whether it's gonna appraise high enough. And he is going to be an owner occupant, so we think it makes sense to help subsidize what he's doing there. And what we're proposing to do is to contract with his GC directly, and we would pay for the roof, and that's about $35,000. And then he would finance the rest through his home headquarters loan. So we are looking to contract with KT Restoration, and I don't have multiple bids in your packet here, but I can say that Mr. Kroll, who's buying his house, has gotten quotes from multiple contractors over the last few months, and this was the lowest that we've seen. And KT Restoration has done one from headquarters in the reputation.
and then for the roof.
We would contract with them for the roof, and they would be doing the entire project.
This is
Kevin
the
Kroll.
line item for the.
Exactly, yeah. So we're looking for authorization to spend $38,000 or $35,000 on a roof.
Questions? Motion to approve contract for stabilization to 10 South State Street. So, second. Nancy, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The contract is multiple demolitions.
On page 6 of your packet, you'll see that we put 7 properties out to bid recently. Chris Foley was the lowest bid on all of them. They do currently have 5 other jobs that are already under contract that they're making good progress on. If you were to give them these additional 7, that would keep them busy through the end of September. This is the last of our LBI money. It needs to be spent by December 1st, so we've got adequate buffer room there to make that happen. So we are seeking your authorization to contract with the lowest bidder.
3 properties on Wall Street, which is sort of an early demolition. This is how we build the street.
Yeah,
It's
so
close to the school, Fraser School, so,
that 100 block is a challenge.
yes, right down there. Okay. Any questions? Ask for a motion to contract with multiple demolitions, open that.
So moved.
Nancy, second. Then all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, contract with multiple demolitions, counties across the street.
These bids came in yesterday, and I'm gonna pass this around to you to share. You guys each have a separate handout that's loose on the table there. Again, Chris Foley is the lowest bidder on every single house. These aren't as big, but I would like to get them down by the end of the calendar year. We're gonna be talking in a moment about some building that we would like to do in this area, and we wanna clear out, all these problematic properties on Fitch Street. They're attracting a lot of squatters and bad behavior right now. Ultimately, we wanna get rid of all of our demo candidates on Fitch and Putnam as quickly as we can, but, I think this county funding that we have left for the year would be sufficient to cover these ones on Fitch. Is that correct? The total's gonna come out to about 230,000.
Yep, we're good.
Okay.
Just about.
Good.
So what we would propose to do is to use county funds on these because we would already used up all of our LDI for the year.
We can handle this.
Yeah, I mean, so the ones that you just gave him would keep him busy to the end of September, and these would just need to get down by the end of the calendar year, and they're really cranking them out, they can do 2 a week. As soon as, they get pulled away for other jobs, that creates issues.
Any other questions? Okay, let's go motion to approve contract with multiple demolitions. So. Nancy, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The contract with Chester Pavement Line,
In your packet on page 7, the first map there showing Chester, Hobie, and Huron, in the little yellow block, it's a little 18,000 square feet. That area was already cleared of trees, and we brought in some fill to level it out because it was kind of a depressed sunken area there. We hired Chris Foley, they've added grass seed, and they will be coming back in and finishing up and putting split rail fence around this area. And all of this is being funded by our contract with the city for ARPA vacant lot maintenance. Steve Harris is very interested in emulating what the Philadelphia Horticultural Society has done with their vacant lots. They call it their clean and green program. They want to leave them level with healthy grass and healthy trees. We've taken out any trees that were diseased and anything that was just a small diameter or just undergrowth brush. So that what you're left with is healthy, mature trees and open space that you can see. So there's a septhead component as well. Crime prevention through environmental design wants to have clear sight lines so that there aren't places behind. So that's kind of the idea here, is to make it flat, green, mowable.
easy to maintain.
Exactly. So that has been done already, and now what we want to do is to use the remainder of the money, move a little bit north up Chester Street. Some of these properties are actually getting foreclosed on today that will be coming to us. You can see that the next map down, that area that's shaded in yellow is where they would be doing the same thing. We just demolished the house at 121 Chester using LDI, so now it's clear for them to make that one large grass expanse. We received 2 bids on this work, and we're seeking your authorization to contract with the lowest bidder, which is Scanlon Trucking and Excavating.
Any questions? So motion to accept the contracts of Chester Pavement Line.
So moved.
20 seconds, Nancy's first. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Contract with Costello Concrete Aaron LLC. Okay, for the excess proceeds here.
You may remember it was quite some time ago that you voted to enter into an agency agreement with the city. So the city revised their local tax and assessment law. There now has to be a procedure if somebody files a claim saying that they think there's going to be excess proceeds they're entitled to. Then anybody that might have a claim gets notified. There will be a hearing. We get that property appraised and calculate what the excess is. And we need a hearing officer to determine what goes to which lien holder, what amounts, and preside over that hearing. It needs to be an attorney. Yeah, and because of the agency agreement that we've signed with the city, we need to subcontract that out. So we've issued the same RFQ twice now, and didn't get any responses the first go around, and this time got only 1 complete response, but it was very strong. And we put it out there saying that we need an attorney to be the hearing officer, and let us know if you would also be willing to handle the notices and all the mailings and hold that money in escrow, issue the payments, and their firm is willing to handle the whole thing, which is very nice that we wouldn't have to deal with any of that in-house. Their rates seem reasonable. I don't know that we're gonna have very many of these cases.
I'm looking at John because I don't know.
I was ready. I mean, it comes with an asterisk, it's a lawyer, so.
Lawyer and a judge. It's a Supreme Court of Justice.
It's not just, it's not just any lawyer. It's a retired judge.
When, as far as Mr. Pierce goes, Judge Pierce, he's pretty involved with a lot of labor issues. So I think, especially issues with the city. So he's right on. He's still doing a lot of good work in the neighborhood. So.
I use him for all my closings.
Really?
Always. Well, we were in the church,
Oh,
he's very close to me. Yeah. But he does a great job for closings. He's very attainable. Sorry, but
No, it's a good disclosure. You might want to consider
staying out.
recusing yourself from that. How you suppose that you might not want to deliberate.
Do you want to say anything about the anticipated volume or?
Well, we don't know, I guess is the answer. We really don't know. Although there haven't been many claims filed with us so far.
But we haven't had any houses.
Right, we're closing on our first batch today. The first batch in over a year since the Supreme Court decision. And we're acquiring 10 properties.
All vacant lots.
Yeah. I think they only received 2 claims, and they've set those properties aside. They're not foreclosing on those yet until they address those claims. And this is
Procedurally, how that's gonna work, John, is if they get a claim, well, and along any path, right? I mean, they can make a claim at any time, so we can get it.
Well, no, there's some pretty strict requirements as to when they can make a claim.
Okay.
So they're gonna be receiving, they're getting the same notices they've always received,
Right.
right? Pay your taxes or else. In that process, they will receive an additional notice that says, if you believe the property is worth more than you owe in taxes, fill out this form, it's a claim form, tell us now. And if they do that, then there's a strict time frame. I don't have it in front of me, but there's a strict time frame for them to submit that claim. And then if they make that claim, then once the foreclosure takes place, as Caitlin said, the appraiser will go over and appraise it immediately, determine if there is surplus or not. If there is, you're gonna write a check under our agreement. If you hire Costello Cooking fee on that money will go into their escrow account. And then Judge Paris will conduct the process by which those people who submit claims can come back and further justify their claims for money, and he'll decide who gets it essentially.
So it could be the former owner, it could be anybody with a financial interest in the property, a mortgage holder.
Yes.
And the services of Judge Paris will only be needed the same way as services of a assessor or appraiser will be needed. So it's like a case by case. We're not like paying them a flat fee all the time. It's just like billing as needed.
And when we submit to the city for reimbursement or what we pay out in surplus funds, we'll also be submitting for reimbursement this expense.
Yes. Yes.
Will we wait? That would be case by case, obviously, we just.
At the end of the year or when we have 200,000 returns first.
Might be 946 fiscal. Okay, I ask for a motion to contract with Costello and Home Fair Media LLC to act for excess proceeds. Jonathan, second. Second, Michael, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Justin,
Nancy,
I abstain.
Just Exhibit A to the February 23 contract, date HQ service.
Starting on page 34 of your packet is a 2-page exhibit A that was attached to the contract you authorized us to enter into back in February 2023. AHOP is a new program, and as such, it's a little slow with them getting the money out the door and doing things billing. Home headquarters AHOP application was approved last year, so they have commitment from the state to fund these projects. They haven't actually closed on their AHOP funding yet, and they are still kind of shuffling the list of addresses around. So from this initial list, some things can change. So they applied to buy these properties before they applied to the state, because they had to show the state that they had them under contract and site control. So when the state came back, they said they did not want to fund the ones in Jordan and Elbridge because they're so geographically far flung and not part of this type cluster. So on the next page, you'll see I've got kind of color coded. Those in beige there were cut out by the state. Those that are kind of a pink color were eliminated by home headquarters. They decided that they're not ready to proceed there at this point. There are quite a few vacant lots that are already in their own inventory that they've subbed in for these. And then the ones in gray, we've actually already closed on. So if we go to the next page, this is what I want to replace Exhibit A from that February 23 contract with a new Exhibit A. And this would be the clean version that we would want to attach to the contract. So it's a smaller number of properties than we had initially contemplated, but we are still getting 5,000 each whenever the closings occur. And that's what they've paid us so far for the ones that they've already acquired from us.
Just out of curiosity, why did they choose to keep one property on Albert and all the
And
rest?
not the other. I have no idea.
Seems very strange.
And they've also cut out,
Everything on Merriman?
you know,
Yeah, we'll get there eventually.
I don't know if they have one, well,
Well,
keep talking about that.
those sites will eventually get built on. So, they initially started with that horseshoe at the very northern end of the near west side neighborhood with the development SU support. And they've been working their way south. So they are taking some properties on, not in this batch. I guess there's one on Gifford. They already have several on Gifford that are also doing part of it. So they're basically working their way south one block at a time. And I don't know if they were overly ambitious, but they're just not ready to go there yet. But, those are good buildable sites that will get picked up eventually as they continue to work south.
You may have, what's it, like 80% increase from up there?
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know, maybe outside. Okay, great.
These will be owner occupied.
Yes, they will all be single-family homes that get sold to owner occupants. They have to be earning 80% of area median income or less.
Any other questions? Okay, exhibit A to February 23 contract with HHU Ahab sites. Motion.
So,
Second, Nancy, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Require certain practice from the city.
Okay, on the very last page, on the back of your packet, is a list of properties that we would like the city to foreclose on. Many of these you've already voted on, but I just thought it was nice and clean to have them all in one resolution. So this is our wish list for Fitch, Kellogg, Grace, and Holland. I'm going to take one of these and pass it down. And so do you mind kind of passing these around with people to share? We already own quite a bit on these streets, but there are additional seizable properties that we want to pick up and some city-owned properties that we want to pick up. You can see them color-coded on this map that Terry's put together. These kind of light pink ones that are outlined in gray, those are the sites where Walida is going to be building their apartments. That'll be about, let's say, 49 units of apartments up and down this street here. And one of the concerns that we got from the neighbors was that these are all going to be low-income housing tax credit apartments. They'll be for people earning 60% AMI or less, and they're concerned about concentrated poverty. To balance that out, we want to do single-family homes that would be owner occupied in the surrounding blocks. So we've started identifying buildable sites that we already control and buildable sites that we could control if the city would foreclose on some of these. There's also a few that we might want to privately purchase that I want to talk about as well. But this list here on the very last page of your packet are kind of the low-hanging fruit that the city could foreclose on or that they already own that they could convey to us. That would help us build out some of these sites.
Some of the neighbors who were concerned about that, know that there was significantly north of this area.
Yeah.
There was wilderness neighborhood, as we said, so.
I still think it's the right thing to do to balance out the low-income apartment units with owner-occupied on the surrounding blocks. Delaware Street is zoned R5, so they can do those larger apartment buildings. All of these side streets are lower density zoning, so for most of them, we can only do 1 and 2 family homes anyway. The 200 block of Fitch is zoned a little higher, I think we could do 4 units, but it doesn't, even though it's allowed, it doesn't really fit into the context of that block. So we would like to ask the city to convey these to us so that we can continue to put this map together.
Do you have a sense of ownership occupancy rates?
They are very low. I was looking at that.
It might be 0.
I want to say, yeah, it's higher than you think. I want to say it's around 20%.
This street might have people who are see their interest is there.
Well, the census data that I was looking at recently, so one of our next discussion items is how to get these built. We've been talking with Julie about maybe putting in our own in-house application. So I started pulling some data together to put that grant application together. We're gonna go in that direction. And I believe that this census tract has a homeownership rate of about 20%. Citywide average is 40%. There are not a lot of buildings left on their street, and there will be even less after we do those 7 demos that you just approved.
The south side is already pretty sparse because of the.
Those very large lots, yeah, and those are old homes. They're not, I thought they would be habitat houses because they're such big lots, but no, they're original. It's very weird.
So it's possible that those were already that big from the beginning.
It's possible. It's odd. that They're all identical. So home headquarters has historically not wanted to build in this area. It's a more challenging sale. Fish Street has a stigma. They want to know that when they build these homes, they do so quickly. I would not build 2 or 3 houses on Fish Street, but I think if you build 30, you'll be completely transforming that street and shaping it into an entirely new environment. And I think then we stand a chance of selling them for a good price. Jubilee has been working with potential buyers for many, many years now, getting people mortgage qualified. They have a waiting list of about 20 folks that want to buy. Many of them Spanish-speaking buyers that want to buy in this area. And they are in the process of hiring a bilingual housing counselor that would help with this.
So the counselor on home ownership.
Yes.
Any price range, any idea on what these houses could go for?
Elsewhere in the near west line, Gary's selling houses for $150. But I'm thinking anywhere from 120 to 140 would make the numbers work.
Wow, that would be outstanding. Any thought of 2-family?
ADOP will only subsidize the one owner occupied unit, so we would plan on doing single families for this project.
Okay.
But nearby, Housing Visions is building some 2 families right now on Merriman? Is that where they're 300 block of something?
Seymour.
Thank you.
Good,
Yeah, those are rentals.
that would be great. Good.
So whether it's us building it or whether it's somebody else building it, I think it makes sense to put together these building sites because this is the direction that we want to go in, is to get some
We'll
owner
change
occupancy.
the hair. I think it's great.
So the first item that I would like you guys to vote on is to authorize us to acquire these properties from the city. And then I don't have this on the agenda, but I do want to talk about potentially purchasing some properties. So the ones in pink here, they're a private building. 134 Fitch would be a target to acquire, 118 Fitch. I'm sorry, I have my desk.
Looks like 153 and 149.
153 was just damage by a fire.
Yes.
151.
Yeah, 153. 149, I actually think is city-owned land. Those colors are very similar and confusing. Sorry. But so there's at least 3. Basically, we would be looking to buy anything that is tax current, that is residentially zoned on either Fitch, Holland, Kellogg, or Grace, that would enable us to put together a buildable lot. So
Sorry, when you say tax current, does that mean that they're habitable tax current, or are they
there,
people who are, other than that other 2/3 that are paying their taxes but letting the house rot?
yeah, they would almost all be demolition candidates, either demo candidates or already there.
Sorry, I'm not that familiar with this.
No, that's, yeah, there's just a handful that we can't get through foreclosure that would really make an assemblage work well. So like C-134 there in the middle is the missing link in a long string of properties. 153 on the corner would be nice to be able to get control over. That one, the bottom unit is occupied, but it really should not be. They don't have any electricity.
No electricity.
It should be declared unfit, it's a nightmare. I would also be very interested in offering to buy, is it 233 that we saw the other day that the porch was falling down? 233.
233 recently had a fire on the front porch, that's why the front porch was falling down. And they moved out of that house, so it was vacant.
Oh, it is vacant, okay. So Brian,
Judy lived there. Judy, the girl.
Oh.
That was all good.
gotcha. So it's tax current. Brian told me that they had not been pursuing a quarter or demo because it was owner occupied up until recently, but now that it's vacant, maybe that's changed. So I was talking to Ryan Shield in the codes office about, if they're owner occupants, maybe they need a little money to relocate somewhere better. Maybe we could buy that house from them and they could move on.
I believe they own the house next door as well. Judy was talking about moving into that area.
Oh.
next to them.
Okay.
Yeah, check the ownership.
So we definitely have Judy's phone number then, since she calls us all the time. I didn't realize that that's who it was, so. Yeah, so the first item we would be asking for is authorization to acquire these foreclosures, and the second would be authorization to spend up to a certain amount on acquisitions on these blocks. I think you've got 4 properties, maybe, I would imagine that less than 20, and we have the money in our acquisition budget.
So the properties, some of them are occupied.
The only one that's occupied would be 153 Fitch.
And we'll give somebody help, obviously.
Yes. Yeah. So we would be looking for anything that's residentially zoned on these 4 streets that would be part of putting together an assemblage for a building site. And if they are occupied, we would be providing location assistance.
If we could turn Fifth Street around, because Fifth Street's probably the most neglected.
There's a lot of dumping on that street.
It is all the
Picked
time,
up
it calls on it all the
fire.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in that one side, the south side. And then there's a continuum, I don't think people talk about it enough, but there's a very big danger, not only with it's squatters building out, there's building houses, but out fire.
Yeah. There's also a lot of squatters on Putnam right now, which is one street to the south. And so we're talking about using county funds to do all Fitch demos this year. If we apply for AHOP and we get funded and we actually are going to start construction on Fitch in 2025, I would want to simultaneously go in and do all the demos on Putnam so that those folks aren't hanging around creating problems for construction sites and discouraging people from buying on Fitch.
Awfully tiny lots, aren't they?
Yeah, that's why so many of them have to be reconfigured. So you can kind of see here the thinner lines are the current lot lines, and the thicker lines would be the new lot lines.
I see, yes.
40 years ago, this was just a very small street.
Yeah.
Deteriorated. Okay, any other questions?
Sorry, I just heard a side conversation. You said that the cross hatch is That's okay. So then just out of curiosity, noticing that, I guess it's 148, 150 is not on the list, but it's feasible on Fish Street.
Oh, that's because we do want to acquire it. It should be on the list. I'm pretty sure we voted on it previously.
Okay.
We are thinking that that would be parking for the church, wherever else nothing's happening with the church.
Right. Forgot that's the church. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, any other questions? Acquire certain properties from the city of Syracuse. Second, Nancy, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, and then, if you're inclined to authorize us to spend up to $260,000 on purchasing properties, with those criteria that I laid out.
So,
Second.
Okay, Jonathan, Larry, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Discussion.
So a little more detail on this potential application. Jubilee had come to us and asked, they wanted to put in a purchase offer to buy 5 lots to do an AHOP application. And so you're gonna go to all that work for an AHOP application, which is pretty involved. We should probably do more than 5 houses. And so we got to talking about teaming up with them to do an application for 40. And it's all gonna come down to how much match we can secure. So we are spending down the last of our LBI right now. Once we have spent 75% of our current contract, we can apply for another contract. And so what I would like to do is in 2025, ask the county to fund the demos and stabilizations that we've historically used LBI to cover. And instead apply for LBI just to do new construction subsidy to match AHOP, if we were able to get it. So I think if we got 50,000 per house from LBI, times 40 houses, that would be the full 2 million that we can ask for. And then we would potentially have the 200,000 from AHOP, so there's $250,000 of subsidy. The buyer's mortgage, I'm anticipating we can get around 140, and that should hypothetically cover costs. These numbers are still a little bit of a moving target. But I think that we could make it work with just those two subsidy sources, AHOP and LBI. Even though they allow us to use LBI money for demos, I don't think that HCR really enjoys doing that. They've made it really cumbersome from the environmental review perspective, and we would be wanting to do a larger number of them next year, so we have to go through a more involved environmental review. The county is interested in funding demos, so this kind of just seems like a logical thing to do to use their money in that regard and use LBI for new construction, which the state wants to fund. Now, I don't know if we can make those numbers work. This is assuming that we could get a house built for around 390,000. Now, Doug Riker is working as a consultant for Jubilee right now. He used to run Christopher Communities, he's retired. So he's done a lot of new builds over the years with HCR funding. He has a good relationship with Bridget Gardner, and we're helping him dial the numbers. They had quoted Jubilee around 430,000 a house, but that was when they were only doing 5. And they think that by doing such a volume, densely concentrated in one geographic area, they can get their numbers down. And we're looking at other ways to potentially trim, potentially doing crawl spaces instead of full basements, which I don't love, but Doug and I have talked about how we make those useful crawl spaces. They will still be 3 or 4 feet deep. They will have a concrete floor, so they'll be clean. We would maybe make sure that they're lighted and have a couple of hatches in the floor so you can actually use it for storage at least for holiday decorations.
So utilities would be there too.
I believe that the
Flat furnace.
yes, yeah. So these would have to be all electric with heat pumps. HCR is requiring that now. They require that you have an EV charger in the driveway. There's a few other things that are messing with our numbers right now that we're trying to figure out.
Are you talking to Grid about EV charging incentives and stuff?
Yes, that's one of the things that Doug's looking into.
I'm just, it's that much more expensive to put in a full basement than 3 or 4 feet of crawl space.
Well, it's one of the things that we're going to discuss with Bridget Gardner and kind of see what our options are. Walt is also interested in having some community meetings with folks and kind of putting together a menu of, here's how much money we have to play with, and here are the things you can choose. What's more important to you, a basement or a 4th bedroom, or kind of see what the community wants. So it's all very tentative at this point, but I just wanted to let you guys know that these conversations are happening and see if you have an appetite for it. Jubilee does a very good job of community outreach and having those kinds of meetings about putting together the design, bringing us buyers. If we were to go down this road, I would want us to be the applicant. We would get the AHOP contract. We would hire the contractor and supervise their work. Make sure that we're fully in compliance with all of those AHOP contract regs.
And you've had conversations with Jubilee about that type of arrangement?
Yes, and what we need to do is get down on paper kind of how that division of labor would work, and then how would the resulting split of the developers fee work. It's a good chat. If we end up needing more subsidy from LBI per house, the state doesn't care if we go over 50,000 per house, but they will not go over 2 million per application. So if we need to use more than 50, we'll probably have to do it in 2 ways of 20 houses, which is doable.
It's good budget. Good idea.
So we'll keep exploring it. We have a meeting scheduled with Richard Gardner and Julie tomorrow where we will learn a lot more. And I'll keep you guys surprised of it. But I think it's good either way to keep laying the groundwork to put these sites together. Because like I said, whether we build on them or somebody else builds on them, it's good to have them.
And since we're talking about county funding, and I got here a little late on recognizing the county legislative.
Yes.
We're here to call for a certain county legislature.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. What are your thoughts on the county's appetite to do demos and stabilizations that would help us make this possible?
More than I've seen, so new legislators up in Washington County, in conversations with legislators, we're in agreement that the county needs to do more for housing. We're not in agreement with what we should do, but more of us agree that demo is something we can do.
Okay.
The reasons why is a little discerning.
Yeah.
But there is an appetite at the county, specifically with the suburban legislators, to do a demo within the city. And, you know, not my favorite thing to do. I definitely didn't become a legislator to destroy them, don't want to build them. But if that's somewhere the county can help, I say we should.
Okay. And I mean, I would be framing it in our ask as, your demolition funding would make it possible for us to build these houses. And that's what I think everybody wants to see is more supply. You know, when you're having a housing crisis in Onondaga County, we need more move-in-ready homes. So I would imagine that would be something they'd be supportive of.
And there's certain neighborhoods that, you know, how they're out.
Yeah.
Especially this. Neighborhoods around us. And we get local land, you know, just put it together, but it's difficult. We're gonna have benchmarks on this type of thing. I think we should have performance goals for an organization.
Yes, absolutely. We would be.
I know we do, but I just want to.
What's the sort of timeline that it takes from approval to key turn?
Well, that's an excellent question. So, you know, February of '23, we entered into that contract with home headquarters for them to buy those AHOP lots. Just a few months later, they were approved, and they are just now getting to the point of closing, so we're trying over a year to close and start construction. I think part of the issue is that with two recent programs, HCR has changed the way the money flows. So it used to be, say they approved Gary for a project like this, he would go take out a line of credit, build the house, and at the closing table, whatever needs to come in for subsidy, you might get a check from the state, a check from the city, and then they get the check from the buyer's mortgage, and that's all sufficient to pay off the line of credit, and they move on to the next house. I guess HCR does not want to cut a check for every single house anymore, that it's just too cumbersome for them. They are not doing in-person inspections to verify that the house is done. They want to outsource all of that to local vendors. And so they've done the same thing with legacy cities, and they're doing it with AHOP, where the money will flow through a local bank. And so for a project like this, you know, it's $8 million of subsidy for 40 houses that will be deposited with a local bank, and Gary's using it as federal on his current batch. And then in addition, they would provide the extra construction financing that's going to be repaid by the buyer's mortgages.
They meaning the bank.
The bank, yeah. So they are issuing payments out in construction draws as the project progresses. And then when each house is done, they're drawing from that subsidy to pay off the construction loan. So these logistics between HCR and the bank have taken them forever to figure out. But I'm cautiously optimistic. If they've already kind of figured this out with Yes Federal, maybe we just follow behind Gary into it with them.
That's what I was.
I think trying with a new bank might put us right back to square one. I have reached out to M&T and NBT to talk to them about this. And I think it's worth exploring who we can get the most competitive interest rates from. But if we're starting all over again, it's going to take a year. We just need to go get us way home.
Because that does not help address the the issues that we're facing.
No, so I'm optimistic. If the city can foreclose on this list as quickly as possible and we can do some purchases, as soon as we have site control, I think we will have figured out all the construction numbers and everything. We'll be ready to actually submit an application. Let's say we get that in the end of the calendar year. I'm cautiously optimistic that we can have shovels in the ground next spring.
So you would be the client for the draw loan, with the lender,
Yes.
okay? And then it does take every bit of 10 months for most of these builders, and it just is what it is.
Yeah.
It's a contract, it's the supply chain, it's hard.
Rich Gardner has told Doug that they think they can do 20 houses in 9 months.
We're a big organization.
And I said, how fast can they do 40? He said he would get back to me.
It's a great concept.
I'd love to get them all done in 1 year, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like sort of a momentous type thing
Yeah.
that will change, to your point. The perception and dynamics in such a way that dragging it out isn't quite have that same.
exactly. You want an overnight transformation.
As you're building them, would you put them out for sale?
Yeah, we would,
Right? You'd
yes,
be able to, so you can buy it.
yes.
And it sounds like Jubilee would have very good fingers on the pulse of lining people up in a way that might not be as hard to find.
Good.
It's kind of did you cover?
So the 2025 county funding request, I would want to be asking them for a lot more than we've historically gotten. The past couple of years, we've gotten $250,000 a year from the county, and they've been very generous with being flexible on the terms, saying we can use it for anything our mission allows. And I know that they are interested in funding demos, so I know they have an appetite for maybe going higher than 250, and we're gonna swing for the fences and see if we can ask for $2.4 million. That would cover, that would cover a lot of demolitions. I had sent out a draft memo to you guys, but I think that the numbers are shifting around a little bit. I think those houses in Jordan and Elbridge are gonna cost more than anticipated to build. So I would wanna ask for 1.8 for demolitions, and I'm not sure exactly how much we can do with that, but it's gonna be around 45 or 50 houses. And then 600,000 for stabilizations and to subsidize these 2 houses in Jordan and Elbridge. So we have 2 lots out there, one in the village of Jordan and one in the town of Elbridge. We had acquired those through the county tax foreclosure many, many years ago. We did demolitions on both of them because they were eyesores. And we've had them for sale, we're trying to get somebody to build there. We haven't found any private builders that are interested. And we did try to get headquarters to build there, and see that the state didn't want to fund those in their AMP application. So in our ask, we would just, clarify that, we've been working on this for a while, we're not finding anybody else that's able to do it, so we'd like to do it ourselves, but we need to subsidy. So with 600,000, we could do 2 new houses there and 5 stabilizations. And Terry's been looking at modular home builders that could make our lives very easy when it comes to building those houses. That would handle, building a foundation on site and dropping a house down.
Do the cost is the same, Terry, or?
Same or better. I didn't see the first price, so. As opposed to a stick-built house.
Oh, yeah, it's better, it's not $400,000.
Yeah,
I forget what the number is now, that's 250, 280?
he's at around 250 right now. We need to add some things. So we're looking at a 1,200 square foot house that has an unfinished attic. I want to ask about finishing the attic just to get that square footage number a little higher. But it is 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, with a 1-car attached garage. The one in the town needs a septic tank as well. The other one is on municipal water and sewer. We would want to go all electric. So that number that we started with, we're gonna have a little more to do with heat pump. So it's still not a moving target, but we think we could make it work with this number, 600,000, for those 7 projects. So I would like to revise this memo and have it come from you, Pat, to the county executive, and copy the ledge chairman and copy Legislator Brown, and probably Ken Bush as well, because he's been advocating for those homes in Elbridge for a long time.
Sure. And the legislator and I will be working on their political strategy in the county.
Yeah, hopefully they don't choke when I see that 2.4 million number.
Sometimes legislators don't actually listen to this.
That
That doesn't mean he goes along with me, but he listens.
Loud voice.
But
Oh,
I think we'll
boy.
be a good team.
Yeah.
And the only other two things I wanted to make you aware of, the Green Ships Community Investment Fund is now accepting letters of interest. I think that we should be applying to them for something. What that something is a big question mark. They will fund subsidizing housing units like this, so we could potentially ask for more money if we need to make these houses possible. The RFA is a little confusing because it's going to include money from Micron and money from the state. And the state money can only be used for capital expenses. They're very clear about that. And when they go on to say that, you know, your application includes a blend of things, they might fund part of it from the state, part of it from Micron, depending on what's an eligible expense. But they don't really elaborate.
At all.
What's that?
That won't get complicated at all.
Exactly, yeah. And they don't really elaborate on what are the eligible expenses with Micron money. So,
It's got a good name.
yeah.
It's good. We don't have anything sustainable in that. But-
Yeah.
So who's going to administer this? The feds?
Yes,
State's going to administer it. But some of the money's coming through Micron.
I think it's Micron's money, but you said it's over 20 years.
yeah, it's like $500 million over 20 years. So what does that mean for us now?
I'm wondering with the city's housing plan that was just released in the last 3 months, is there something that we could do for stabilizations in those focused area neighborhoods?
That's a good idea.
Actually, both Caitlin and I are sitting down board and
Yeah.
deciding what it is. I think we had our first meeting, it's supposed to be the 26th, but we haven't ever seen councilors throw a large curveball. I think that's a better meeting.
Oh, well, it's been postponed now. The August meeting is canceled because they have to reincorporate the games that were.
Well, that's right, because you got to use
Yeah.
corporation.
So in September, they'll have its first meeting. That's a very good idea to have them with the housing strategy.
We should talk about that. It's a, just a, you know, it's the first meeting.
Yeah.
Always good to have an ask where you meeting.
Yeah. So I guess I'll stay in communication with you guys about this. We should probably get a letter of interest in soon. And if they like your letter of interest, they'll invite you to submit a full application.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be terribly specific yet.
Is it a rolling application or is it a deadline for working?
They started accepting letters on the 15th. When did they stop? I don't know what it says.
I don't think it's forever, but I think it's some time.
And then I alluded to this earlier, the LBI funding that we are spending down, as soon as we hit 75% spent, we can apply for more. And we do want to apply for the full 2 million, just subsidize those houses.
Should be this fall.
Yeah, and hopefully very soon, we're already,
Probably next month.
yeah, we're already at 70%. And that's it.
Thank you. Terry, this is a great map.
Yeah, going over it, I see a lot of mistakes. Maybe I'll update it for you.
This is just for internal purposes.
Thanks for honesty on our stuff. Okay, I'll ask for a motion.
So,
Okay, good.
Chevelle, I never get notification. 17. Did they meet this summer or what?
oh, Josh,